Welcome to this episode with Darren Le Baron.
You're about to build a relationship with a living and breathing organism.
All about mushroom therapy.
Bright and bubbly, and it's going to be great. You know, that's what we trust for, but sometimes it's not that.
And so if you are interested in doing a mushroom trip or you want to understand this a little bit better, it might resonate with you. So let's get to it. When you meet people who have never used mushrooms before, what do you start with? How do you start talking to them?
Well, the first thing that I usually impart is that you're about to build a relationship with a living and breathing organism. And the best thing that you could do is get to learn as much as you can about it, educate yourself, and through that, it's going to empower you to be in a safe place and space to start moving forward with it, whatever your interest may be in mushrooms, whether it's cultivation, medicinal mushrooms, you name it. It's about building a relationship. So I'm going to point you in the right direction so you can be educated, man. I think that's just like the most important thing.
Even that approach where you say you're entering a relationship is different than how a doctor would say, here's your pill. You know, you're not seeing the mushroom as just the psilocybin compounds.
I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't approach it like a doctor for sure. But like I said, yeah, you're building a relationship, man. It's like anything. I don't know, man. It's like going to the store and buying food or medicine. You should kind of like want to know what it is you're putting in your body, what's it you're putting in your system. No different from if I'm meeting you, you know, I want to get to know you, bro. I want to find out what do you like? What are your interests? And, you know, like, where do you grow? You know, what inspires you? Like, you're going to find out things about the mushroom that you might not have known. By knowing these things, it's going to put you in a place and space where it's like, you know, just out of respect, I said it's sentient, it's living and breathing, just like you and I. So like, why wouldn't you want to do that? I know our culture is kind of like a quick fix thing where like you're just given a pill or package and you pop it and you're hoping for the best. But, you know, that's kind of like one of the big problems that we have on planet Earth right now with that approach. So we want to have a more of a holistic approach in, you know, just like in your healing and so forth. So that's where I come from with it.
Do you find that a lot of people are resistant to that way of thinking when they're, you know, say mixed into the culture that we have right now? Because that appears to be a very indigenous view of healing.
You could say that. People say like it's like an alternative kind of approach, but for me, it's the primary approach, man. It's like how cultures around the world do this is what we've been doing. And because of the way the pharmaceutical industry is set up and presents to us what it presents, we've got this, you know, take this 3 times a day at these times on an empty stomach or after a meal. It's like, and we're not really sure of what's going on. And for me, that's like an issue. You know, a holistic approach to this is, you know, really knowing what's going on with you. And is this thing that you're about to put in your system complementary? And what you find, because a lot of people who are now approaching mushrooms and stuff, they're kind of like looking for answers, you know, like they've tried several things in the past and it doesn't seem to be getting to the root cause. They're patching things up, but still coming back to this place and space where they're not happy. So for me, it's like, maybe because you're not having those conversations, you're not getting to the root cause of why you are physically ill or you've got depression or anxiety and stuff like that. And this approach in building a relationship with the mushrooms is actually just building a relationship with yourself. It's nurturing yourself and getting to the root cause of, you know, whatever challenges you may have. And it might not be the answer. It's not always necessarily like the quick fix magic pill, but you're definitely going to be in a place where you feel like, okay, like I'm understanding why I'm going through what I'm going through. And therefore you can find alternative or complementary modalities to help you on this path of healing.
What point in your life did you stumble upon this and realize that this was a helpful tool?
As a child, man, I just wanted to be Spider-Man. I always say, folks, I want to be Spider-Man. Like, I want to activate my powers. I felt like we had powers and we could do stuff, and there were barriers in it for me accessing this stuff. You know, whether that was, you know, being able to walk through walls or fly or heal myself, repair myself like Wolverine. Like, these things I feel kind of like lay dormant in us somewhere and buried. And so I've been on this journey of life since a child of just like trying to work it out, trying to work myself out and activate these things. And that's led me to different schools of thought, different ideologies, and, you know, whether it's like yoga, meditation, dream work, you name it, just like, what are these altered states all about? You know what I'm saying? And healing played a big part of that. I didn't know it at the time. time, but I was just trying to have fun with it. And what happened was in my, in adulthood, I'm just moving through life and working things out in adulthood. I kept on hearing about psychedelics in particular, mushrooms and psychedelics. But where I'm from, born and bred in East London, mushrooms and psychedelics wasn't on my radar. Psychedelics was something just that the white boys I went to school with were into. We'll talk about it in class, but like that's what they do. Me and my homies, we smoke weed, we drink a bit of rum, that's our vice. And, but it kept on coming around. But as I delved more into the indigenous approaches to spirituality and indigenous approaches to healing, these brews and concoctions kept on coming up, which had these psychedelic compounds and components to them. And I was like, I can't keep dismissing this thing as this white boy hippie thing without giving it a go. So it wasn't until I got into adulthood that I really said, let me dive in. And the day that I dived in, life has not been the same, man. It was exactly what I was looking for, and activating my spider senses, and as well as, opening me up on my path to self-discovery and, healing, even healing that I wasn't aware of. I didn't know at that time, but it just opened me up to you got a lot of baggage that you carry around with you that's not yours. You got a lot of baggage that you're carrying around with that you can put down, Darren. And okay, like what? And through these different journeys, I was having these experiences that were just kind of revealing and, as I say, just lightening my load. So that's kind of how I got into it on my personal journey. And then later on, I started sharing some of those revelations to my community, which is still pretty much a taboo subject.
Yeah. So where is the state of acceptance of mushrooms in the UK right now? Because you spend a lot of time teaching about mushrooms in the UK, and you also teach mushroom education to kids. So how does that all tie together?
It's taken a while for me to feel really comfortable and confident to say I could go to court on behalf of the mushrooms, and represent them well, because of the negative narrative and stereotypes that they're given. It's not fair. But with that said, I'll go out there and people you teach children how to grow mushrooms. You got to be careful with mushrooms. Mushrooms are poisonous. Mushrooms are deadly. Mushrooms don't taste nice. I hear it all the time, man. So 9 times out of 10, that's the front line that I've got to deal with. And again, it's just through education, where I come with it. And it's just so did you know that mushrooms are the soil creators? Do you know about soil and plants? They're yeah, are those things important? Yeah. Well, did you know that mushrooms created the soil so that plants can do what they do? They play more of a, they're not just, there are poisonous mushrooms, there are toxic mushrooms, but they play other roles first. And if I'm going to introduce you to someone like Rob, if I just met you and someone says, hey, here's Rob. Rob gets on my nerves, he does this, he does that. Those things might be true, but that's not how I want to introduce you from the gate. So it's about giving them their full spectrum of offerings, and, from being the soil creators, being nature's recyclers. If you're into composting or recycling, all you're doing is role playing a mushroom. You're just doing what mushrooms do. And these are some positive traits and qualities that mushrooms have. That's how I start my conversation with them. But in the here and now, mushrooms are trending, as you know, man. Everyone's talking about mushrooms. It's on the news. It's in the newspapers. So now it's a lot easier because people are you've been talking about mushrooms for a while. I saw in the newspapers that they can help with mental health issues. They can help with, anxiety and dementia. And there's a long list now of people saying, so what is it that you've been talking about? I'm more interested now. I'm curious. And you've got a way in. So you line up the history, the culture, the science, and depending on who you're talking to, you kind of know which angle to approach it from.
Because I have a science background, I like to see the data first. And, that's not the approach of everyone. And like you said, it depends where they're coming from. I think because the data was so promising, I said, okay, well, I'm going to try this. And then I think I stumbled into the same view as you, which is it allows you to look at the root causes of the thing that you're dealing with. It's not just masking the symptoms, and you got to start addressing those. And it is such a different way of viewing health and healing. No doctor does that. So many things I could talk about with you, but I really want to dive into mushrooms as therapy and just kind of start from the beginning. If you meet someone at, say, one of your mushroom growing courses, and they're excited about this trending thing of mushrooms and psychedelic therapy, how do you get them ready for their own journey? Like, say they want to kind of get into it, but they just don't know where to start. What are the first steps?
First step is education. I'm going to provide information, resources that they can just start diving in and learning about it from that premise. Personally, as a cultivator, I think it's really important to build this relationship through mushroom cultivation. Like, imagine the empowerment you get from growing your own medicine, regardless of what kind of mushroom you want to grow. Like, I always say, like, you can weave your own intentions, your own magic. You can put your fingerprint on it, man. It's like baking your own cake, cooking your own food, like that. And the process that it takes to learn how to cultivate and be consistent and disciplined and, forming this relationship, that in itself is empowering. Like, I call it the rites of passage. And why it's a rites of passage and not a rites of passage, because I usually teach people how to grow starting with brown rice, just something that's easily accessible. You can grow mushrooms on brown rice. So, you're going to go out and buy a bag of rice. I'm going to give you the things that you need to get, and you're going to go home and be able to whip this up just with stuff that you've already got at home. And that in itself is kind of also supporting you. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I building this relationship? You're doing like, what they call it, biohacking. You're getting inside yourself, like just unpacking like what's going on before you even attempt to actually do what it is you're doing. But with that said, depending on what mushrooms you want to grow and what challenges you're facing, primarily we look at what's known as, set and setting. What is your mindset? Where's your head at? And like, where are you trying to go with this? And like, we just kind of start unpacking all of that. And, the main thing let's we're dealing with, psychedelic mushrooms, for example, because that's where more challenges can arise, if anything, or where most people's fear is kind of rooted in. We're going to make sure that you're in the right mindset. So that's like just making sure that you're familiar with what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're about to do it, and setting up a protocol, a process for you that you feel comfortable in doing. And whether that's being in a place that you're comfortable in, whether that's indoors, outdoors, being in an environment where you're in nature, or you're in bed with your favorite cuddly teddy bear, like, so you feel safe, just you're in a safe space. And that's then what we call the setting. The setting is the stage. And I usually tell people, imagine like you're creating a surprise birthday party for yourself. What would you want to have there? What are the things that would invite you to be in this place and space? And then we co-create this experience, and I support people in that co-creation. And it has so many different models and variations because it's bespoke. You are bespoke. You're one of one. You're not like anybody else. So this one size fits all model isn't the way forward. And that's then gives people empowerment to be in this, and then the other factors like, well, what is it that you're taking? How much are you going to be taking? And just, again, that comes in with like education, giving people references, places that they can go to. In particular with mushrooms, there was some research that was done some years back now where they looked at recreational drugs and how dangerous recreational drugs are. Everything you can imagine, from tobacco, cocaine, heroin, marijuana, all the rest of it. And without getting into it, the research suggested that right up there, the most dangerous, hazardous drugs that you can be dealing with were, alcohol and tobacco, all the usual suspects who you'd expect to be. And it wasn't just the hazard to the individual, how dangerous it is to you. There's also the butterfly effect. If I drink alcohol, it affects me physically, it causes damage to my well-being. But if I go out and have a drink, jump in my car, knock somebody over, jump in my car, go home and abuse my wife, there's like a knock-on effect. So the research was thorough just as far as the impact these drugs have on the human and society. Way down there on the bottom of the list was like mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. The least harmful recreational drug that you could be using was at the bottom of the list, right? And you had marijuana, even coffee's up there, mate. Like the stuff that we do all day, every day, and don't think twice about as being the norm, when actually, in fact, they're more deadly and dangerous than the things that we might think are dangerous and deadly. With that said, mushrooms can be psychologically challenging. There is that, and there can be some challenges if you've got underlying, mental health challenges. But again, these would be things that we would explore and unpack while you're on this journey in educational side before you even attempt to put anything in your mouth.
I feel that one of the most unfortunate things is that mushrooms were put in and labeled as a drug for many people, including my parents' generation, anyone my generation and older, I would say, it's really hard for them to switch their view on it, depending on how ingrained those early education programs were about don't do drugs. Instead of viewing it as a medicine or something that culturally is appropriate at a certain age, something like that. I think that's unfortunate. Let's take this scenario, because this is kind of real life scenario. Say I have a friend who is going on a psychedelic retreat, and I want to help give them all the tools that they need to be ready for it. Right. We talked about the idea you're entering a relationship and that you need to have a protocol and that you can change your setting. But here you have a setting that is the retreat, maybe six people. There'll be eye shades on, high doses, probably 3 to 4 to 5 grams, depending on what they see fit for each individual. How should you prepare for a journey ahead of time? Because I think that's a real question that I've got a lot of times, and I have my own way of answering that. But how do you address that with somebody who's kind of prepping for a journey?
Yeah, so like anything, it's this relationship of like pre, during, and post the experience. So leading up to it, if you sign up for a retreat, I would always ask like, why are you going to the retreat? Like, what does this retreat? What's it offering you? That is pulling you in and drawing you in, like making sure that you're familiarizing yourself with the facilitators. I would like to think that if you're there's going to be some kind of collective communion going on, because yes, you're going to be building a relationship with the mushrooms, but you're going to be building this connection with the people that you're sitting down with. So all of these things are really important as well to make you feel comfortable and prepped, knowing what you're taking and how much you're taking and what expectations one could have. And that's usually where some people fail or have challenges with. So, because things affect everybody differently. That's just the reality of it. So, some people go into it, like I've had people be like, I'm going into it and I'm going to sort out my depression. I'm going into it and I'm going to sort this stuff out. And it might not work that way for you, and you've got to be open to the potentials of what could happen. And I'll give you this example because I'm aware of somebody who's gone on a retreat and they went on it just to sort out like their mental health challenges. They were feeling depressed. They had people around them who had done retreats before and returned and felt like they had benefited from it. But when they had this experience, they went to Peru, I believe it was, if I recall correctly, and had their experience. They came back and came to one of my sessions. We was reasoning and they was like, yo, man, I'm having a lot of these experiences like where I'm seeing like spirits, I'm like seeing spirit stuff and all of that. And they're like, what's all that about? Because I just thought that this helps you with depression. And I'm like, see, that's a component that not many people speak about. And it's really important because that's like the foundation of what these experiences are all about. Because when you hear it from the indigenous groups, whether it's Africa, Asia, the Americas, psychedelics as a whole are technologies that allow them to communicate with their ancestors. It's like a gateway to the spirit world. And if you don't have any foundations in ancestral work or the spirit world, that in itself can throw you off. Some people might say, I had a bad experience. I had a bad trip. I was seeing spirits. I was seeing ancestors. And I'm like, no, that's what this thing is about. What you need to do is be kind of prepped in that. You need to have people that are privy to that stuff. And in these clinical environments, that's not necessarily the framework that's on offer. And you got to find your balance. So for me, it's like looking at the full spectrum of, from the clinical side of things, the data, the research, the evidence, but also looking at it from that indigenous grassroots perspective and kind of like marrying the two. That's kind of like the best preparation you can do. But the reality of it is, I will say this, the reality is like there is no preparation. You are stepping into the unknown, man. Like, and that's like you've also got to. So I'll say you got to have the ability to kind of like let go and and submit and release yourself to the experience at the same time. So all that you might think and it could happen, you also got to be prepared that that might not be the way that it goes. And there's another route. That you have an agenda, but the mushrooms may also have an agenda. You have a consciousness, the mushrooms have a consciousness. They have a consciousness too. So to wrap that part up, that's why then integration plays a big part. After this experience that you have, whether it's exactly what you thought it was going to be and or the total opposite, there is this whole process of integration where you consider and reflect and use different modalities to process, your experiences. And you don't do that alone, and that goes back to that initial community, those 5-6 people, the facilitator, that's your community, plus where you go back to. That plays a big part. Your friends, your family, your container, as we refer to it. These things are really important to consider. I couldn't share all of that with you in 40 minutes or however long we've got this. That's something that's really important to factor in.
Well, see, my feel is that the mushrooms bring to light potentially the things that you are missing and make it very apparent what you need to change.
You got it, man.
And so say you're going in and you already know that I'm just thinking hypothetical situations here because you've never used mushrooms before, but your container isn't the greatest, but you know what I'm saying? Like you have a psychedelic retreat maybe that you're going to, but like all the other things could be better, but you don't quite know how to change those things yet. I mean, that wouldn't prevent you from trying them for the first time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you approach that? Because there are a lot of people who are stuck and the mushrooms allow them to be unstuck to then start setting up everything right after that.
Well, I look at it, it's like any kind of training, any kind of course that you've been on, like there's, you're at university and you're studying, you've got tests coming up and you're going to be challenged by it and your mum doesn't know the answers, they weren't educated in the same way. So what you do, you're going to find a study group. Like you make a conscious effort to fill in the blanks. Like, this is your world, it's your life kind of thing. You're the star of the show. Like, what are you going to do then? If you don't have the support, do you just say, hey, I don't have the support and that's it? Or do you consciously go out and seek the support? And, and you've got to, again, I'll go with it. You've got to go with your organic technology, man. I call it that, with your organic juju. Like, how does it feel? I know it's hard to difficult, but it's like, there might not be data to verify this, but like, when you meet this group, how does it make you feel? Does this feel like these are people that you want to connect with? And I say that to say, because I do a lot of workshops, a lot of talks, and people come to my workshops and talks and they try and chew my ear off. And they say, yeah, because I've got nobody to talk to. I'm the only one in my family. None of my friends are into this. And I'm like, you just come to a workshop. There's like 30 or 40 of us in this room that all feel the same. We feel like we're the black sheep, we're the weird ones in the family. And this is the opportunity for you to connect with people. And then you got to fill people out, just like in the real world, man. There's good people, cool people, not so cool people. And there's like cool facilitators, there's cool therapists, there's not so cool therapists, and you've just got to make that conscious effort. And you know what they, that saying, like, God helps those who help themselves. If you seek, you shall find. All those kind of ideas. Like, it's just really encouraging and empowering people to like create their reality. How do you want your reality to be? If you're like me, I'm like an isolated guy, man. I'm comfortable being in my cave, you know what I'm saying, and cracking on with stuff. But I know that doesn't fit everybody, and some people need the support and the network. And I'm like, yo, let's make sure we get that support and network in place for you if it's not immediately there. But yeah, don't let it be a prevention. Don't let it stop you from, because it's the journey. You're on a journey and you start with the first step, and not everything is there at the gate. You know what I'm saying? At the start line, it's the finish line, isn't it? You got to get to the finish line.
I look back at my movement into mushroom education, and I don't think I would have ever seen myself starting into it, 20 years ago. I had read about it, but I was a fish biologist. And I think the reason I do a lot of mushroom education is because so few people, like you said, you get these people in your courses, they're the only person that knows about it. I feel like I have to get the word out about this as a tool because it's just at the point where more people need to know about it, and then we can move on. Like in 100 years, maybe this will be more common as a culture and there won't need to be people advocating for it. Do you see any similarity to your approach? Because why are you such an advocate of mushrooms?
Well, one, because I am a mushroom. I think I highlighted you earlier on before we came live, man. A mushroom having a human experience is one of the key downloads and revelations that I got from the mushrooms. And I say that all just to say that we are coming full circle, Rob. It started with the mushrooms, and it's going to end with the mushrooms. That's just how it goes, man. There's nature's recyclers. It started with the soil. We go back to the soil. And if you go back to the first people, it starts with them. And what they have to say a lot about mushrooms and the role that mushrooms play in their life. What we're actually discussing, the challenges and taboos and these negative narratives around mushrooms, are issues in the West. It's not all over the world. I know we're in our own little bubble. We think our bubble is the world. But no, in other places around the world, they're privy to this stuff, man. And like, they've aligned themselves accordingly with nature and work with nature and all these things. And they have like what we would say are preventative measures and not seeing these things as medicines and cures. And I guess as the children, and the little brothers and sisters of these cultures, like they look down at us and just be like, yeah, you're in that cycle now. And yeah, one day you guys will work it out. So with that said, I'm in this part of the world, and as an ambassador, a representative on behalf of the mushrooms, my family, yeah, man, I just represent them because, yeah, they get a bad rap, as I said, man. People are thinking that they're deadly, toxic and all the rest of it. But as I said, they are that, but they bring so much more. And, they use me, man. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the cordyceps mushrooms, and all the benefits that they have from the human species, but I refer to them as Warren G and Nate Dogg. they're like the regulators. You know, you get some, they're the ones who, they're like the hitmen, you know, and they work alongside the insects and stuff. So they take out the insects and regulate insects when there's particular species that are doing too much. And when I say doing too much, just overrunning the place, you know, taking advantage of resources, that not sharing. And the cordyceps mushrooms inoculate them, take over their brains, their minds, and actually grow out of the cordyceps grow out of the insects themselves. And many people ask, you know, like, do you think there's one for humans? You know, because like humans are doing way too much. We're doing like way too much, and you know, like, maybe, and I say to people, maybe, you know, like, I'm one of them, man. I feel like I've been inoculated by the mushrooms, man, and they've taken me over. Going back to that point of like, why are you wearing your mushroom shirt? You know, like, they've taken over you. Like, this is what they do.
I know.
I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a special day for the mushroom shirt. Well, it's funny. My wife used mushrooms for the first time 3 years ago, and she resisted for a long time because she's like, I don't want to be a mushroom person. Those people are weird. And if I don't want to take the mushrooms and all of a sudden just it's mushrooms everything. And she's come around a little bit, but she's not mushrooms everything because she originally had that in her head. She doesn't want to go weird onto it. But I loved her first experience. She spent 3-4 hours really deep with her first experience and then came out of it and could finally talk and said, wow, that was some primal shit. That was the first words. She's part Cherokee and she saw all of her ancestors and felt like she healed ancestral traumas. And I mean, it was, she then talked for 8 hours about all the things she said, and I wrote them down for her. It was really a great experience. And, you know, she's an advocate for it. See, my issue is I want to try to explain to people the benefit of mushrooms, and I resist showing people who are on my channel who are super deep into mushrooms and potentially are a little crazy generally as a person, you know, because there's those people too, because I don't want the straight people who worry about it as a drug making people more crazy to get the wrong idea, right? And this just comes from my scientific background, so I like seeing the science, but it's also important to see it as an alternative view to modern medicine and what are those benefits. So what are some of the benefits that it's done for you? Because that seems to be the biggest sell for me, is I've seen very few people, if any, where it's been a negative thing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, I could definitely relate to that because, you know, I stepped into this space thinking the same thing, man, because those white guys I used to go to school with, they were good friends of mine, man. I just thought they were going to be druggies, man. And some of them did turn up being druggies, but, you know, but for the most part, I've just realized like, I've just been kind of like bamboozled by Hollywood and miseducation and all the things that they've shared about it. So it took for me to have my first experiences and be like, shit, this is not what I thought or I've been told it was going to be. And it's a lot more, has a lot more substance and depth, you know, or more profound than I thought it could ever be. And then, so I'm sharing with you that because I then wanted to share that with all my family, friends and family. And then every my friends and family like, look, you're about to turn into one of those crazy mushroom guys, innit? Although I have. But what they found out over the years of me just like standing on my square, I refrained from kind of force feeding it with people. And initially I was excited about it and like, you got to try a mushroom, you got to do this, and you know, people were like, yo, it's like, no, this is not for me. And what I found out over the years is that I just had to be a living and walking, talking, breathing mushroom, just doing what I'm doing without force feeding it down anybody's mouth. And then what's happened over the years is friends and family been like, yo, you're still on this mushroom thing, innit? And like, it seems like you're doing all right, man. Like you're traveling the world, people invite you to do talks, so they see me in that space. But even without that, the people who know me on the ground from the streets, they're like, bro, I can see like it's just really supporting you in becoming. And I've got friends and allies who are like, yo, I want to become, I want to grow up. I've had a friend who's like, bro, I'm a man with kids of my own. He goes, but I still feel like a baby out here, man. And I feel like this thing can help me mature. And the reason being is because he just see me on my journey, on my path. So for me, that's just really important to embody this. And when you start meeting people who are mushrooms, having a human experience, and like yourself, your wife, who have these experiences, when other friends or families who might be scared, fearful, naive to it, you've just got to stand up and tell the truth. Like, yo, this thing has really empowered me. And when you can say it without, you know, I always talk about Trippy Ricky from Rotherham, you know, this archetype of creative, but you know, these dudes, yeah, man, you got to try it. And it's like, yeah, they're very off-putting. It's like, but Rob, he's a sound guy, he's professional, and he's wearing a mushroom shirt talking about mushrooms and how it's profound, and his wife is doing it. And, you know, like, it must be okay. And then you present them with data, the newspaper. I'm like, do you still believe in the newspaper? You know, what they print? Because it's even being printed in there. And then I've got some scientists that are also suggesting it. And I've got an indigenous groups that vouch for it for tens of thousands of years. And then you've got me. So between all of that, maybe we can start to have mature conversations about it. And that's always been my goal. Just like, let's at least, I'm not saying that you have to do it or I want you to do it, but at least let's have a mature conversation about it. So at least if the next generation coming through are like, yo, mum, I'm interested in doing mushrooms. If I told my mum that at 13, 14 years old, I might have been told something. I'm like, what are you talking about? Get that out of the house. You know, it's a drug. It's a this, it's a that. But now we can start to have mature conversations around it. And for me, what that's ultimately going to do, Rob, is raise awareness and raise consciousness. And that's what these mushrooms and stuff are all about, raising consciousness and getting us to a place and space where the world becomes a better place, because we're still becoming something. The world is still growing and becoming, and we're a part of it all. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's just like...
Yeah, I mean, I was blown away. Like, my first experience, I hesitated to try to recommend it to everyone right away. It took me a couple of years. But what I found is seeing people and being with people who went on their own journeys, almost universally, the response when they came out was, I want to be a better dad. I want to, do be a better person. I want to straighten myself up. I mean, none of it was like, oh, I want to do more drugs, be silly, it was all like the best resolutions that people came up with. And I'm like, wow, that's unbelievable. Or I want to, see the world happier, and I can do it. I don't have to be fearful all the time. And this just clicks in their head. So because I've seen it being all so helpful, that's why I'm an advocate for people to try it. And I think partly the reason I'm chatting with you, but a lot of the other people that I chat with, is I want to make sure people are having the right experience. It's definitely not about just take them, go to a music concert. You don't even know how many you take. I've seen people like that. I was like, so how many mushrooms did you take? How many grams? They're like, I don't know. I just ate a whole bunch and then went to this concert, and it was a terrible experience. I was like, oh my God. Well, yeah. But what were you thinking about? Like, what came up?
Yeah.
I was feeling shame and I was feeling this. And I'm like, well, there was a reason for that. You got to dive through that. Maybe not a good container you just set yourself up to do these mushrooms in, but...
Yeah, it makes me think. Let me just share these two quick ones with you, man. I always give these testimonies to two good friends of mine, or who became good friends, should I say. And both of them lived the street life, in the UK, very much into the street lifestyle, of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and violence, all that type of stuff. And but on their journey of growth and development, they came across my works and just wanted to connect. So I'll never forget this guy who had his first experience. And I always share that because he came in tough. He's a tough, tough street guy kind of thing. After him diving in, having his 4 to 6 hour experience as well, during that process, he was like, yo, Aaron. I was like, yeah. He goes, these mushrooms are trying to make me cry, innit? They're trying to make me cry. And I was like, bro, just sit back and just let it flow, man. And his tears just started flowing, man. And he had this release. It was amazing just to see and witness. And then after his experience, he was like, man, I've not felt so much peace in my life, and just to hear that from this gangster, bravado, tough guy, and just having that release and that experience. And years later now, him saying like, no matter what's going on in life, when I have challenges, like, I just remember that first experience. He can kind of like tap back into how it made him feel and the release that he had. And, for me, it was just so empowering. And that was a big part of me saying, yo, because I come from the hood, man. I come from the streets of East London, man. And a lot of people that I deal with, they see this as something negative or bad or whatever it may be. But I know how powerful this could potentially be in what I refer to as healing the hood. And then I've got these hood characters. So I'll just share one more with you just to highlight the referencing, like the role that mushrooms play, because some people refer to them as the amplifiers, they amplify. So it doesn't make you good. I'm not going to sit here and say they make you good, and I'll give this example of this other dude that I work with. And, he had this experience where he's gone upstairs, done his mushrooms, came down, and then he's gone to me, Darren, I'm a god. Mushrooms are telling me I'm a god. And I'm like, yeah, bro, you're God. Go back to your room, relax, go through the motions. And then he came back down about half an hour later and he's like, Darren, I'm a dickhead. And I'm like, that's right, you're a dickhead too, man. Go and lay down. And I say that and share that because what mushrooms will do, they'll take you through the motions, man. They're going to show you the spectrum of yourself, that you can be this amazing being, but you can also be an arsehole. and it's going to show you those aspects of yourself. And that's why I say at the beginning of my workshops, I say, like, I'll give a shout out to the mushrooms for showing me the good, the bad, and the beautiful, ugly inside of myself. Like, that's what they reveal. So you're going to have those experiences of shame, of doubt, of fear, but the pendulum can also swing, and it will swing to the other side and to show you how great and amazing you are too, and what you've got to do on both sides to become the version of yourself that you want to become. That's what I think that they do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. So I have a question from my friend here in the chat. She is going on this psychedelic retreat. The retreat is, I think it's 6 or 7 people, and they're going to have eyes closed lay down with masks and higher doses. But then in her case, at the end of the night, she has to go to a hotel after. And her mother is going to be there to be able to be kind of like a post sitter. I don't know what you would call that person, not during the experience, but just like at night. I've been trying to figure out how to relay what her mom should know. Like, how would you prep that person, right? Like, if you were to talk directly to the mom, like, what should she do and be aware of for my friend so that she knows, so she doesn't do anything wrong? Like, she wants to be supportive, but she doesn't know anything really about mushrooms either.
Yeah, man, it can be a tricky one, but it's a simple one at the same time. And I say that to say, as somebody who's holding space or being a sitter, like, your main responsibility is just to make that individual feel comfortable. And that is, in a nutshell, like, whatever they say and share with you, you hold it in confidence, and you pretty much just agree with them, man. Like, it's really like that is, that's really important, because a lot of people who are new to this and they're hearing this weird stuff, that's not going to make any sense. It might not make logical sense. And you're standing saying, that don't make no sense. What you're saying sounds crazy. What you're saying is like, that's not what they're going to want to be hearing in that time and place and space. So it's really important. If they're saying, yeah, because this happened, and, the Coca-Cola can turned into this and it transformed into that and it spoke to me, and you got to be like, and that's just like I said to the guy, yeah, that's right, man, but just go and lay down and everything's going to be all right, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've got to feel empowered to play that role. And the amazing thing about what you just shared with me is that it's her mother who, I'm assuming, but has got a natural nurturing responsibility to her daughter, like, just by default. So, like, you just got to have someone who's like, when you need a hug, they're going to give you a hug. If you tell them, be quiet, don't say anything, they will be quiet and not say anything and not be offended by it. Like, just know that it's not your time. It's not your show. It's your daughter's time. It's going to be your daughter's show. And just whatever she needs, whatever she asks for, you're there to serve her. So when I'm there for folks, I'm like, just see me as your servant, man. It's never too much. There's nothing that you could do or say that's ever going to be too much for me. If you just need me to hold your hand to go to the toilet, if I've got to sit there and see you puke up or whatever, like, whatever it may be, just feel comfortable that I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm not going to call you out on that type of stuff, And once you feel comfortable, the individual, that you've got the right person that can do that for you. And if that's your mum, your sister, partner, whatever it is, that's like a really powerful space holder for you. And I think that's all you do, man. That's the most important thing. Yeah, for me, that's it. There's a lot more we could go through logistically, but if you come into it and own it in that way, everything's going to be all right on the night.
And so you kind of wrapped everything up with what you were talking about with integration afterwards. But do you want to elaborate on that? What should people ahead of time be prepared for as they're going through an experience to do after?
So, trusting everything's going to be blissful and bright and bubbly, and it's going to be great. That's what we trust for. But sometimes it's not that. And what usually happens is there's going to be some kind of like trauma releasing in some form or another. We carry, as you might be familiar with epigenetics and stuff. We inherit, we roll with stuff. And sometimes we're not even aware that we're rolling with this stuff. And if and when it comes up, you need to have appropriate modalities to address that. And usually what I tell people is like, what modalities do you already do? Rather than try to find something new, like, what are you already doing? If you're already doing yoga, if you're in a gym, you could just be like, I'm a runner. I go running every day. Like, that's where I'll zone in and I'll get my focus, because it's all to do with movement. A lot of this is all to do with movement and how you process and integrate your trauma and release it. And you can do that through running. You can do that through yoga. You can do it through the first form that we do it with. And that was dance. Like, dance plays a big part. And as much as, like, even just, like they call it shaking, like trauma releasing, just shaking. It's like a lot of it is to do with movements. Factoring in modality that incorporates movement plays a big part. And if you're like, I can't dance, I don't run, and you're like, find your thing. There's something out there for you. Like I brought in Qigong into my life. I didn't think that's something I was going to be doing, but I brought in Qigong. And how did I bring in Qigong? Because in one of my experiences, I was doing all these movements and I felt like I was doing martial arts or Qigong, some type of form. And it just, I felt it. And I was like, I need to explore, look into this more. And I did, and I fell in love with it. So you might find something that you fall in love with that helps you process these energy. All about energy or energetic movement or dis-ease, energies that need to be moved around and transformed and stuff. And it might sound airy-fairy, mumbo-jumbo, but that's really important. And then the integration is also just being able to talk with people like Rob, people who've been there and done it, that are just like everyday people. And then you might want to have a therapist if you're, addressing certain issues, having these players, having your team play, your squad. I always say you need a squad, man. You're going to need a squad. And then you bring all that together, and trust me, you're going to create processes for yourself that are applicable to you. And yeah, I'll leave it at that without, kind of rambling and going on. But, but the whole goal is like, we really want to unpack it all. We want to unpack it so you can move on. It's not like I no longer have trauma, but it's like, it no longer holds me back. I don't let it be something that prevents me from moving forward in this world. And that's where you want to get yourself to. And all of these factors play a big part.
Do you think you need a therapist that is aware of psychedelic, how psychedelics are? Like if you're, say, afterwards you have a therapist, I mean, because sometimes it's hard to find that. I've just become aware as I've chatted with friends. They want potentially a psychedelic therapist, but that's not available. Is that a problem? I mean, what is your thought on that?
So during the experience, post the experience, if you're comfortable in your own skin and honest with yourself, you will know if you need to speak with people, beyond, let me just have a conversation with Rob and Darren. It's like, no, I actually feel like I need a professional. And then what you're going to want to do is seek out a professional. If they're not already utilizing psychedelics in their practice, just one who's open to that. One who doesn't see it as something negative or, and most people who are in their training now, it's part and parcel of the training.
I love all the info that you're giving me. I think my advice for people is at some point you do have to just take that first step, which is challenging for a lot of the people who I know because they love the control. I know a lot of people who, especially in the science world, they want to know every bit of info before they proceed. They want to have everything planned out before they proceed. And the irony is those are probably the people that could benefit the most from this, but yet they're inhibited by the fact that they don't want to step into the unknown. So as we were kind of wrapping things up, what advice do you have for that individual, or should that individual stay away from it? I don't know.
No, well, ironically, man, it kind of piggybacks off, your friend who's going on this retreat and stuff, because Kalindi E, as I mentioned, my teacher in this space, he always taught us that this journey is the journey of the alone into the alone. This is the journey of the alone into the alone. You're born alone. Sometimes in life you're alone and you're going to die alone. It's like this journey, and it's about relinquishing the idea that you are in control of this thing. We're not in control of anything in reality. We might feel like we are, but we're not. And, it was these philosophies, because I'm one of those guys, man. I'm a nerd, innit? I'm trying to work things out all the time. And how does this work? And this, that. And what happened after me going into this mushroom experience with that voice of Kalindi, like it's the journey of the alone into the alone, just let go, because that's all I could do, Rob. It got to that point where it's like all this working out that I was trying to do, the mushrooms in this experience were just laughing at me. Like, you're out here trying to work this out, man. Just let it go. And the moment I just let it go, that's when all the magic happens. So I'm saying that and sharing that, just say that, yeah, it's going to be difficult at times, especially if you've got that rational, logical, mindset, and you're coming from a profession like that. But for me, that's where it's not really about you. It's about the way the mushrooms work within you. And I think that relationship, it kind of just makes you feel just like my friend said, man, I have never felt this relaxed before. It's I feel like I can breathe. I feel like I don't need to think about all those things I'm usually thinking about that are so important, and those things that are important to you, everybody has important things, whether it's the child, your children, your job, all those things that you think are important, you always put them at the forefront. It's it just kind of gives you this breathing space between all of that. You can leave all that alone for a minute and just appreciate this experience. So whether it's the data guys or the family, the mother who's got her hands full doing all of this, like we've all got it. We've all got those things, and it just like helps you work through all of that, man. So I just say everybody, like, just hold on and breathe and be prepared for, you know, your load being lightened, you know.
Yeah, I think that's the right advice, because you can't know exactly where it's going to go. But I try to reassure people it will be good. You know, it's not something you need to be too worried about. Okay, so here we could do maybe 2 rapid fire questions from the chat. My friend says, something you said that really resonated with me was you discovered that you were carrying baggage that's not yours. How did you process that?
Well, one, I'm still processing. It's a lifelong of processing. You know, I'm not out the other end, depending on the different things that have come up. But how that is, the first thing that I realized I needed to do was have some conversations. I had to kind of like, and with those, because it brought up family stuff that's going on within my own family. And the first one's like partners, parents, siblings. Some heavy conversations, man. But those heavy conversations were well needed, you know, that have brought tears to all of our eyes and all the rest of it, man. But we've just had to go through the motions of like, you know, if this is what's being revealed to me, you know, I can't hold this by myself. And it's a family thing. It's a partner thing, a relationship thing. How do and I take it to the mushroom. That's what my teacher will say, take it to the mushroom. If you're not sure, how do I start this conversation? How do, you know, where do I go? Which direction do I go? It's like, I bring it back to the mushrooms in that space. Like, how are we going to manage this, man? How you're expecting me to move this forward? How? Give me some help, some guidance, some clarity. But it led to me having these really, you know, deep conversation with family members, and that in itself lighten my load. You know, like, you know, when you're a child and you've done something wrong or you're scared because your parents, you're coming home, they're going to say something, you're going to be in trouble, and like, but once you get it out, and it's going to, even after you a little bit of discipline that you've been given, it's like, oh shit, man, you feel better for it, you feel good for it. And for me, that was the first phase, you know. But then moving forward, you've got to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself, man. And that's where the work comes in. It's like work after that. It's like continually like to become this version of yourself that you see and becoming like, oh shit, this is where my family have messed up in the past. I'm not going to make that error, or bringing it home. This is where I've been messing up. Fuck, I can see where I've been messing up. Like, this is on me. Let me become that better father. Let me not address my children in a way that I've been addressing them, that made it clear to me that, you know, is leaving a negative imprint on them. And I know that then they're going to pass that on to their children. It's like, I can nip that in the bud now by checking myself, telling my children, yo, I'm not trying to be that guy no more, man. It's like, I'm working on myself. Like, help me out though, you know, like, help me out. Like, I need your help and support on this journey that I'm on. It's just having those so that's how I started working on it, man. And
it feels like the mushrooms allow you to be a little more able to have those difficult conversations, like you're emboldened. So that's helpful. And the very last question, somewhat similar, but how have you processed what you learned about root causes of the challenges that you were revealed through the mushroom experience?
Yeah, again, like I keep saying, it's like, it really is a journey for me, man. It's not like I'm there and I've got the answer. Like, this is the answer to this, you know. It's like, it's ongoing. As I mentioned, like, we're still becoming things, and, you know, so I'm losing stuff, but I'm picking stuff up at the same time. Like, it's this life experience, and all I can say is that you get better at it. Whatever it is that you do, you just get better at it. You know, it's, you know, so it's like me going for my runs in the morning and just doing that first lap and being out of breath. But the more I do it, I get better at it. And so it's like, not so much that I've released it all. It's all over. But as I said, it no longer hinders me. And then I've developed techniques that enable me to check myself when I'm becoming that old version of myself that I wasn't feeling anymore. Those experiences that didn't serve me well anymore. It's like, oh yeah, these are the indicators. These are the triggers. How do I now respond? All I'm saying is you just get better at it. You don't get pulled in. You don't get drawn in like you did in the past. Like that's what happens for me and others that I work with. It's not like it don't happen anymore. It's just that you handle it better, man.
Well, it's weird because I often say that the mushrooms helped me in a lot of ways become a much better person. And then I describe how I'm eating better and I'm healthier and I'm not drinking anymore, et cetera, et cetera. And I chatted with a doctor friend of mine and she's like, well, yeah, but it wasn't the mushrooms. It was that you're doing all these other things. And I was like, well, yes, true. I'm hoping I could have come to all those conclusions without the mushrooms, but it's just such a great tool to make you aware of the root causes of some of the things. You know, it's like I've set so many things up in my life now post using the mushrooms, and I could have definitely done it without it, but it's like it accelerated my journey there That's the way I was seeing it.
As I said, man, you've built and have been building and will continue to build this relationship. It's a relationship that you're building. And it's like your own personal therapist. It's your own best friend, your best friend who's going to give you the best advice, going to tell you how it is. Like, it plays that role, but it is a relationship. It's not just the mushrooms. It's not just you. It's this symbiotic relationship that we have with the fungi that we've had since the dawn of time, since the first foragers went out there and ingested it, and to this day that we've got this ongoing relationship. And yeah, we've been separated from it because of legalities and things like that and negative narratives. But as I said, we're coming full circle back to the root, back to the root system, the mycelium network, man. By default, it's the modem, it's the motherboard, it's the hub, it's the database, it's the hard drive. Like, it's all stored there, and whenever you're ready to plug in, it's ready for you.
That's awesome. I want to dive into so many more topics with you, but I know that as soon as I get into any one of them, it's going to be a much, much longer conversation, including a lot of indigenous use of mushrooms, but I really want to go down the rabbit hole on that one. I also want to chat to you about ibogaine, because that's a fascinating one to me, but I don't have a lot of experience with that. So I need you to start at the beginning. So we'll save that maybe for the next time we chat, maybe in person, but maybe just on a podcast again. How can people, now that they want to get into learning about mushrooms, creating this experience with the mushroom, do more of that? Say, because I know you have courses. Do you want to direct people to some of what you have online right now, or what you do in person?
Yeah, man. So in a nutshell, the easiest way to access what I have on offer is to come to my website, darrenlebaron.com. That will give you access to my webinar series. I have a cultivation webinar series, and I have one on psychedelics in Africa, the untold story, where I take people on this chronological, geographical journey from the first people to ever ingest mushrooms and psychedelics right through to the here and now, what's been going on and what role it plays in indigenous approaches to modern approaches. So all of that is available on my website, and that will also give you access to my social media. And I've got ongoing, posts and stuff that not just myself and what I offer, but my allies, man, people who inspire me that I think are doing dope stuff in the world. And I just plug people into, what other folks are doing out there. So between the website, social media, it's all at darrenlebaron.com. You're going to see me with my head with mushrooms growing out of it. That's going to be me, man.
Well, I think it's so important that people find the voice that they connect to in this space. Some people view the science and they want to see someone who's science minded. Some people are more spiritual to start with and they need that spiritual teacher. Some people need the kind of the hippie vibe. There's quite a range, and I found people come to it in different ways. And that's why I wanted to point people to what you're doing, because if people got to this point in the podcast, they like what you're saying. And so we're going to leave all that down in the chat, by the way. Thank you, Darren, for joining me today, and for my friends here in the chat, and Kirsten for doing production on this one and setting it all up. I really appreciate that.
That's dope, man. I just want to say thank you to you and your team. Got to give my Mycelium Hub community a shout out too for facilitating this relationship. And yeah, man, I look forward to doing it again in the future, man.
Thanks for joining in, everybody. Just as a reminder, go down to the links in the description to find out more about Darren and maybe take his mushroom cultivation course to create that relationship with the mushroom. And stay tuned for more Stone Age Man talks like this one here about Amanita muscaria and how you can do your own.